Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of the viewers from around the world. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of JForex, not JForex, again I kind of okay. Moving on to the correlation and regression analysis. In today's session of correlation, we will be comparing the forex, commodities, and equity indices amongst themselves to determine to see which one is the better bet for any directional movement which we might expect depending on other technical criteria. So we will be comparing major USD currency crosses and of course the US equity indices along with the Euro area equity indices. Also on the commodity side, we might even take a look into the crude oil chart and maybe gold to see what is the development so far and how this price action data so far in the session is likely to help us in defining the direction as well as the strength of the momentum. So let us now head to the JForex4, the newly released trading platform from the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the Euro USD chart with range drawn for the 4 hourly time frame and 2 hourly time frame. And along with that, I have also added the SMA with the 24 calculation period and 12 calculation period. So with the chart being of 5 minutes each, we get this moving average data for the last 1 and 2 hour respectively, and the range for 2 and 4 hour respectively. Now, after this release of data, we are seeing sharp move in the Euro USD, and as a result of that, the prior price action is not going to be helpful moving forward. But if we were to trade earlier in the day and try to get an idea of which directional momentum was strong or not, we would have been in a better position to judge. And even this sharp move on the higher side can be expected in magnitude, even if we can't really tell. And only after the release of data we got this spurt. But even in the prior scenario, if we were to expect any bullish momentum, we would have been in position to pinpoint in which instrument it is better to go for a buy trade. Now if we consider the prior session data during the European trading hours, the momentum was strongly bearish with decline starting around 1.0043 and going all the way towards 0.9935. That's almost 100 pips, and those losses have now been reversed. But if we compare its price action data on other currency crosses, we will see that the momentum which is now bullish is likely to persist, and we can try to go for new trades. And for that we will have to see which is the strongest bet on the bullish side. At the moment I would suggest we have to stay on the sidelines. There has been significant movement already, and it wouldn't be a prudent idea to jump now after this sharp move. Right now the USD strength, sorry, USD weakness can make these currency pairs fluctuate very widely, very sharply, and as a result of that, the momentum has been strong. And we have to now define and determine which is the best currency cross to expect to go for any long trades later in the day if we have to start looking for buy trades. So here the momentum now has turned bullish, and if we were to go earlier in the day and compare the price action data, we will see for GBP USD the momentum was not that strongly bearish. And if we now look at the magnitude of the jump, you can notice that the jump for the GBP USD has been highest of almost 170 pips. For Euro USD, it is a bit less at around 130 pips. For AUD and other currency crosses, it is even less. For AUD, it is around 120 pips, but for AUD also it is significant. And if we look at this price action data here, we can notice that the momentum was not that strongly bearish as what we were experiencing in the Euro USD. So here we first have to now determine which is the strongest bait and which is the weakest bait for any movement, directional move in all these USD crosses. Here also USD CAD, the CAD has strengthened a lot against the dollar. And let us consider what is happening in USD JPY and USD CHF. The USD JPY had also nosedived of around 170 pips. For USD CHF, let us see what's the story. USD CHF is also trading lower with a decline of almost more than 100 points, 100 pips. So here, now it all boils down to figuring out which is the strongest of these currencies against the dollar. So for that, let us now start comparing these timelines one by one. So for USD CHF, the low, or you can say high, was made at around 14 GMT. Prior to that, it was continuing to rise with the formation of higher highs and higher low. After this high was made, it sort of consolidated, and then after the release of data, it has now jumped on the lower side. So first we have to see which currency made the high earlier in the day. So that gives us the idea of the fading of the momentum in favor of the dollar and gradual strengthening of the underlying currency even before the release of data. So here for USD CAD, the high was made at around 12:55 GMT. For USD JPY, the high was made even earlier at 12:25 GMT. For GBP USD, the high came in quite early at 12 GMT. For Euro, it was the laggard and it made a low at 13:10 GMT. For AUD, it was also behind the GBP in changing the directional gears. So all we are now left with is to look into the price action data of the NZD USD. NZD also made a late change in momentum. It was continuing to make lower lows till 14 GMT. So as you can notice, the GBP is the strongest bid with its last low coming in at 12 GMT, which was also pretty shallow. It was almost close to what it had made in prior move in prior directional momentum, and after that it went into consolidation and it made the first 4 hourly high at 1440 GMT, which is quite earlier compared to other currency crosses which are now only jumping in after the release of price data, after these data release. So for any trade going forward on the bullish side for these currency crosses, I would prefer to trade with the GBP USD. It is strong in terms of the magnitude of the gains also, and even in terms of the directional basis, directional bias. It has been strongly trading against the dollar, even though the momentum was earlier in the day quite in favor of the dollar. Most of the other currencies were getting weaker and weaker, and as we saw, this GBP/USD was not budging. It held on to its ground closer to 1.136, and then eventually, as the things turned favorable, it has now turned quite sharply on the higher side. So, if we have to go for any directional trade later in the day after the do consolidation, whenever things stabilize a bit, we can then take for the GBP USD to be a preferred bid. And if you are in favor of maybe expecting a reversal, then in that scenario, the USD CAD or even Euro USD looks like a better bet for any contra trained trades. If after stabilization, after consolidation, you feel like that we can indeed expect some turnaround and this strength in other currencies or weakness of dollar is not really likely to last. Now let's see what's happening in the equity space. Equity space also, after this sharp move, the graph is getting distorted. So prior to that, we have to see what was the momentum look was like. The momentum was almost absent. This range was only 100 points prior to the release of data. It was consolidating in a very narrow range, and only after the release of data we saw this sharp move of almost 600 point, 2 percentage point, and with this the directional basis is now strongly on the bullish side. But if we were to look into this prior price action data, it was simply a phase of consolidation with not much momentum on the bearish side either. Yesterday, it went into decline, and after that, it simply was consolidating closer to this 32,400 zone. So if we have to compare which was the strongest of these three key equity indices, we will have to compare their pricing data prior to the release, and for that we have to see when the highs and the lows were made. The first 4 hourly high for the S&P 500 came in at 10:40 GMT. For Dow Jones, it came in at 10:35 GMT. For Nasdaq, let's consider Nasdaq as well. For Nasdaq, it came later in the day at 13:20 GMT. So the Nasdaq was the laggard of the three. It even made a fresh low prior to the release at 10,800, and after that, it also went on to jump quite sharply on the higher side. So right now, the all three key equity indices for the Euro US are trading with substantial gains. So it is a bit difficult to go for any fresh initiation of the trade. But if we simply compare these all three key equity indices, we can see that S&P 500 or even Dow Jones is a better bet compared to the Nasdaq. And for continuation of the upward momentum, we can first make the fresh assessment only after new consolidation phase, because after this sharp move it is quite risky to go for any new trades. Let us see what's the development in the commodity space. So we compare the Brent crude and the light crude oil's price action data. There has been jump on the higher side for the Brent as well, though it is quite muted. It is not that significant compared to what we are seeing in forex and the equity space. But here also, first we have to determine which is the strongest or weaker of these two crude oil future contracts, and for that we first have to compare their pricing data earlier in the day, where the high was made at 30 11:35 GMT, and then it went on to make a low at 12:25 GMT. So we compare it with the Brent. For Brent, the low was made at 12:25 GMT and the high was similarly made at 11:35 GMT. So there was not much of a difference. So let us consider the crossover on the bearish side. It happened around 12:35 GMT. For light crude, it is similar. The bullish crossover happened at 14 GMT. It has happened on the similar timeline for the Brent as well. So there was not much of a difference in terms of these price action data for the light crude and the Brent crude. They are more or less moving in similar trajectory with similar timeline. So you can pretty much take any of these commodity instrument, the light crude or the Brent, and we can expect these two crude oil contracts to trade pretty much similarly on similar timelines. So the momentum as of now is now on the bullish side, firmly on the bullish side. So it will be interesting to see how things shape up after the start of US trading session. Let us also take a look on the metal side. We consider the gold. The gold is also now sharply higher. It was not that strongly bearish earlier in the day. It has also went into consolidation, and the low was made at around 12:25 GMT, bit later compared to GBP, but it also then stabilized and went on to make a new high at 15 GMT. So it was moving higher upward even prior to the release of this data, and after the release of data we saw it sharply moving upward. So the momentum is now firmly on the bullish side for all these key equity as well as the forex currencies against the dollar, and on the commodity side we are observing similar pricing momentum. So you can say you can pretty much buy anything, or you can start looking for buying any instrument which you feel favorable. So I have given you some short list of these currencies in which the GBP looks like the best bet, and for the US equity indices, the Dow and the S&P 500 are leading the Nasdaq. Let us now also take a look on the European equity indices. For the European equity indices, the story is similar. But if we compare this price data, here the formation was on the bullish side even prior to the release of this data. So that means if you have to take any new trade, then compared to the US equity indices, it will be a better idea to even keep scouring for opportunities in the DAX or FTSE. FTSE was slightly weaker compared to the DAX. DAX was strongly on the bullish side. And also, if we take a look on the CSE 40, CSE 40 was simply consolidating in this range. It is not showing that much of an momentum, that strong momentum. So my bet would be for the DX on the equity side, and on the currency side, the GBP looks relatively stronger compared to other currencies. So that's my take looking at the correlations of these key forex and commodity instruments. Now, if we have to compare the price data with these average prices over last 1 day, then here the CSE 40 was pretty close to this 24 as well as 12 hourly moving average, and after this sharp jump, we don't really have much of an opportunity to now initiate the trade. But I think after consolidation, and if and when the reversion towards the mean happens, maybe after that we will get a better opportunity. Here also we can now pretty much expect these prices to give you a fresh crossover of sort for this 12 and 24 SMA. And if the price action doesn't really reverse and if it stabilizes, then the new opportunity with a strongly bullish bias will come into play as well. On the forex side, the GBP USD had a crossover earlier, and then it has now gone on by more than 240 pips. For other currencies, the things were not looking that favorable, but now the picture is going to change on that front as well. So it will be interesting to see. But here, as I said, the GBP is a better bet, and on the equity side, the DAX looks like a better bet. So that's my take looking at this regression formation as well. So guys, that's all from my side for today's session. If you have any query or any idea to share, you can write back to me in the feedback section, and I would be more than happy to take the discussion forward. For further coverage of the market developments, do check out the Dukascopy Analytics page. We are also available on the Facebook. You can reach out to us there too. I have also included the link in the bio for these newly released trading platforms. So give it a try and let me know how it works out for you. Thank you all for joining in. I will be back tomorrow with a new analysis, new formations, and we will be comparing the pricing data to figure out the optimum opportunities with favorable instruments. Tomorrow, goodbye.